Hi, my name is Basileus Zeno. So what I'm going to do is a kind of zoom in and zoom out onto the larger structure that is producing the refugee as a subject, and zooming in into my lived experience and how I ended up here. So in that way, you might end up have more insights about what to do and what not to do. So first of all, I came from this little country over there, which have been transformed into more fragmented pieces. But why I'm showing this, while it seems simple, actually most of us grow up here. I grew up learning that Syria is the product of the colonial power, so I didn't have a sense of Syrianness. I used to believe like Syria is part of the Arab world. So my identity was constructed at the time to be part of this Arab world. So when the Arab Spring happened in Egypt and Tunisia, I was crying as if it was my country. But that's not the experience of those who grew up in the middle of the war, because they became more attached to the territory of Syria as the land of violence. So they have different experience, and we have a kind of struggle between generation, between the parents who had their whole memories constructed before the uprising, and the generation of kids who grow up in camps or in many displaced places. So they have different memories and different perspective and vision of what is the future and how they define their nationness. So to give you a sense of numbers, so the total number of population, 23 million, 13.5 million Syrians, which is approximately 70% of the population are below now, need humanitarian aid, including my family. So when I say like this, I have many, to give you a sense, only my parents are living in Damascus. They can't leave. They are living on the front line. My sister is in Congo. My brother-in-law took the Mediterranean, ended up in Germany. My other brother-in-law ended up in Burkina Faso. My brother was working, he's a geologist, was working in northern Iraq when ISIS attacked the refineries there in June 2014. He fled to Kurdistan, from Kurdistan to Turkey. His wife ended up here. He had his son here. He was born without seeing him. Until he recently came after the travel ban, he was caught because of the travel ban. And he saw his kid for the first time when he was 18. And this is another tough thing that you can't observe, and as a researcher, I wouldn't be able to observe if I didn't experience that firsthand, like how his kid is kicking him out of the room. He didn't want him to be in the room. It's a kind, it's shocking me how smart emotionally these kids, because they don't have language, but they blame their parents for being far away. This is the father behind the Skype call. But that's, we thought like he knows his father like from the Skype call. Apparently like he was punishing him, and it wasn't the first experience. So 3 out of 4 Syrians are now in extreme poverty. The ratio of the enrollment in primary education dropped from 98% in 2010. In 2011, the uprising started. Now we have, by 2015, 61.5% illiteracy we have now. So 11.5% of the population have been killed. And this is an estimate, because there is no way to, I have many cousins who disappeared. We don't know if they are alive or not. So that's, unfortunately, it's not the unique. It's not the Assyrian story. It's also a Congolese story. It's a story of Burundian, Iraqi, Somali, Libyan, Yemeni. Unfortunately, it's the story of 65 million people in the world. Hannah Arendt, I'm quoting here, she said, the more the number of rightless people increased, the greater became the temptation to pay less attention to the deeds of the persecuting governments than to the status of the persecuted. One thing not to do or not to assume that we didn't have a life. We have been treated, I was an archaeologist, had 10 years experience. This is the last expedition in northern Syria Franco-Syrian expedition, and this is my advisor. He is the head of antiquities now in Syria. So I didn't expect that that would be our last mission. This area is under the control of Al-Qaeda now. And so there's an assumption that we have no skills, we have no memory, we are like kids, we should appreciate the hosting country, which we do, but it's the integration is a kind of enforcing an identity that it's not necessarily should be one size fits all. So we all have memories. I show, like this is in Palmyra. We have other non-human relationship. As an archaeologist, when we lost the temple of Bel in Palmyra because it was blown up by ISIS, it survived 2,000 years and all of a sudden it disappeared. It was like I lost my parents. So this is why for me it's hard, even if there's an end to violence now, it would be hard for me to come back to see all these places blown up. Because for me, I want to keep the last minutes that I lived through. So again, when I show you the picture of the Arab world, it wasn't just the Syrian experience. This is from the Tahrir Square in Egypt. So then it started what I call it the third pending chapter. I'm a pending asylee since 2013. I sought asylum, didn't have my interview, which means I can't travel. I'm banned without being banned. My parents applied for a visa to visit me to attend my ceremony at Ohio University when I got my master. The Obama administration, because it's the USCIS policy. So we think it's a Trump thing is different. Actually, no. The immigration system is designed against certain nationality without claiming that we are, no, it's a racist system. It has preferential treatment, like if you are Canadian or French, or you have no problem. You can come here, you visit here. But it was extremely difficult even for us before that. So why I call it the third, like I'm still pending asylee, which means I'm still can't travel. There's no decision. I receive nothing. I pay more taxes. And, but my memory captured the last moment why I left. So, and every refugee and asylee remembered the last picture, if he is like an adult enough to remember. So that was on the TV. I took my camera. That was the assassination of the senior officers in Damascus, all these surrounding circle of President Assad. That was in July 18. Then I saw a helicopter flying. This is from my camera. And then I couldn't grasp what's going on. So that was the first time the Assad's regime used airplanes, airjet to target civilian building. And like when you see it for the first time, you can't make sense what's going on. This is how close it was from my, I was living right next to the front line. By the end of the day, it was dark. Syria became like this. This is Syria, this is Iraq. Each color represents different group. If you zoom in, you will find different group too here. Like, it's not homogeneous. This is the Kurds, this is ISIS, this is the government, this is the Free Syrian Army, this is more jihadist group here in Idlib. If you zoom in, these are the groups. But I'm not going to explain this, but to show you the ratio, why I'm showing this, the armed profit from the Syrian conflict alone, this is based on official statistic, is $31 billion, and they spend only, this is Europe, $10 billion. And this is the US, benefited from the Syrian war in terms of armed deals, and this is how they spend on Syrian refugees here. And why I'm showing that? Because every time I'm receiving a question, like as if I'm draining the system, as if I'm here, I'm studying, I'm in more privileged status, but many people who are having all these linguistic problems, like they want to be home. But this is a profitable war. And when you are staying there as an activist, this is the last report by the Amnesty, 13,000 Syrians hanged in one prison. My friend Rami was kidnapped 2 days after I left Syria, and he's still in prison. I got my master, I'm in my second year, I started again, he's still in prison. This is the picture that is on your program. This is if you stayed in the country, so you either will end up in a prison as an activist, or you will wait for basket food from the UNHCR, and that would be the scene. If you went to the refugee camp, that would be the case, and you would be more privileged, by the way, if you ended up in refugee camps, because most people can't even afford having access here. Our kids can't recognize the difference between a cameraman as someone who is holding a gun. When they see a cameraman, they think he is holding a gun or an RPG. They choose the Mediterranean sometimes to leave, and this is the road. Yeah. But not everyone can make this trip. And why also I'm bringing this, my best friend, and that's the reason why I choose to study the lived experience of refugee. He was a brilliant archaeologist. He made the trip, and he was found dead in a chicken lorry across the Hungarian-Austrian borders. His name is Hussein Mustafa. Why I'm bringing this? Because every time I'm asked or represented as if I'm a successful model of refugee. Look, he started from scratch and now he's doing his PhD. That's not true. I just had I did effort, but I had the correct documents at the right time when I was in the right place, but many people couldn't do that. Many people fled without any documents. So don't present me as a successful model, because that's not true. And actually, that is adding more burden and pressure on refugees rather than helping them to push them to the front, because they are already fighting across multiple front line. Even if we are here safe, we have another lived experience when we lose our beloved one. This is my first trainer in archaeology. He was beheaded by ISIS. He was the curator of antiquities in Palmyra. This is my friend, also an archaeologist. She was kidnapped by ISIS in 2013, never came back. How we are presented on Western media, it's either we are going to harass women, and this is actually alluding to the picture of Aylan Kurdi, the picture that captured the eyes of the world as helpless victim, and here as a disease. We are here to protect the American nation, but is it a new discourse? Why I'm bringing that? Because through my work with many refugees and asylees here, when I'm interpreting for them, they start the very first sentence over and over. Hi, I'm not a terrorist. Hi, I'm a Muslim, but I'm not a terrorist. We are in a defensive position all the time, and instead of, having the time to check what's going on, to familiarize yourself about the culture, not you, those who are asking, but we have to explain everything. We have to educate, we have to fight, we have to learn language, we have to integrate ourselves, we have to find a job, to have our kids enrolled in a school. But if you compare between Franklin Roosevelt's argument why they aren't receiving Jewish refugees, you will see it's identical. I will conclude with a few pictures how the images in our memory are erased. This is the temple before and after. This is before and after. This is before and after. And this is how we see Syria. To the left is Syria before the uprising, and this to the right is in 2015. With every light here to the right, there's a soul that disappeared. There's a place that disappeared. So refugees call themselves as guests because it has temporality, because they want to come back home. But their kids don't want to come back home because home for them is the land of violence, is the land that killed their beloved one. So I encourage you to move beyond the statistic and quantify, to read the stories of humiliation, sense of displacement, sense of mourning, why we don't have time, sense of betrayal by the world, betrayal by the Arab world, betrayal by the international world, and how we left alone. Behind each number, there is a story. And if you want to learn, you can ask about these stories. Thank you so much.